Hey you guys, it's Rachel here with Senza Tempo Cane Corso. So I've got Vanya out with Bella, the dog that I've been training, and Cashmere and Blondie and Preacher. So Vanya got a correction earlier, which is why the spot on her muzzle is bleeding again. Cashmere had got her the first night. She got her again tonight. She didn't like put a new hole or anything. She just opened up what was already there. I also have a remote collar on her because she wouldn't quiet down in her kennel. And the owners said that they did want to get her used to using that because they were thinking about getting her one. And so I told them that I would go ahead and start doing that. Bella's owners called me after they saw the video of Vanya getting the correction and told me that they wanted their dog to be exposed to Cashmere so that she could issue a correction when necessary. And so here she is. The reason why Vanya was being so loud was because whenever I was trying to have that moment between Cashmere and Bella, Vanya was just freaking out in her kennel. So I've been watching these guys for a while now, just off camera, just really wanting to kind of watch and observe and really kind of understand what I think the problem is with these dogs. And what I think the problem is that they've been babied. That's what it seems like to me. They have no ability to take a correction or to settle down. Like, I was really thinking about the difference between these guys and, like, for example, like, you know, when you think about Velocity and, like, how Velocity used to get in a lot of trouble. And if you remember, it's because Velocity had a lot of energy. She was always running around. She always had, she was always getting on everybody's nerves, acting up, getting into everybody's faces, being disrespectful, just all kinds of stuff. And now, I don't know if you've noticed, but she has learned that in order to stay out of trouble, she goes and she finds a place to lay down, okay? She typically lays down underneath this area right here, and that's where she hangs out. And so, you know, what I've noticed is that these two can't sit still. Even whenever given a correction, like, for example, Cashmere gave a correction about as intense as the first time to Vanya. And Vanya just hasn't been able to stop pacing, stop trying to move around. She's super nervous. She hasn't learned to just lay down. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, but she's sitting here panting. She's freaking out. Cashmere's sleeping. Blondie is sleeping. Preacher is sleeping. There's no reason for her to be as nervous as she is and freaking out the way she is, other than the fact that she just doesn't know how to be calm. And I think that I need to have, you know, a conversation with her owners about that, because I've got a feeling that they're not being hard enough on her, and maybe they're babying her a bit. That's really the only thing I can think of, because most dogs learn to be calm, to be chill, and she just can't do it. There was a moment earlier where she was laying over there, and Blondie had come up and tried to put her in submissive posture, and she kind of did for a second. She could only hold it for a second, and then she popped up and moved away. And Blondie kind of pursued her a little bit and then let it go. And I was just really watching her, and she just can't relax. She cannot sit still. She cannot. She's so uncomfortable in her own skin. And it's not that she can't be, because, like, earlier today I had her out, and it's like, for whatever reason, wherever I was, she wanted to be. And so I was doing a video where I was doing my makeup over here. I started a makeup channel today. So I was over there doing my makeup, sitting down, and she was laying at my feet, and she was totally fine. And she was totally still, and she was just laying there. And what I'm realizing is it's kind of like, what it seems like to me, it's kind of like a kid that, you ever seen one of those kids, like a toddler, and they run around and they steal toys and they hit people and they throw their toys at people, and they're very emotional and kind of bratty. And then anytime that, like, say, like, another kid, like say they're throwing toys or whatever, and, like, another kid, like, throws a toy and hits them because they're sick of their crap, and the kid just starts screaming and crying, and then the mother comes up and grabs the baby up. And she's like, oh, and she like does like a loving, and she's like, oh, it's okay, and this and that. And it really kind of reinforces, like, what it does is it teaches the kid, that, that it's okay for them to behave that way. And kind of like with Savannah, I was always the kind of like if you start some stuff and you annoy somebody and something happens, well, you just better get over it. You know what I mean? You literally better deal with it, because when you behave in certain ways and you tick people off, they're going to do things. And that's just part of life. You know what I mean? And if you don't want people to do that to you, if you don't want to be treated with disrespect like that, then you need to be treating other people with respect, right? And so I teach my dogs and my children, my daughter, that accountability for your actions. You know what I mean? That if just because somebody does something to you that's technically wrong, doesn't mean that I'm going to come in and save you if you did something to trigger that behavior out of them. For every action, there's a reaction. And I don't know what, I'm going to have to kind of ask Vanya's owners. I really am going to sit and kind of talk with them about like what their day-to-day stuff is like. And I'm going to see if I can't get them to work with her in front of me, because what I know about them is that originally I met them whenever I was working with them with their boxer Dexter, and he was having some major aggression issues. I think I've talked about it on the channel, and they basically weren't being hard enough on him. And the corrections, it's only a correction if the dog sees it as a correction, okay? You can be as tough as you want to be, but if the dog doesn't recognize that you're being tough and see it as a correction, then it's not actually a correction. And so, anyway, so they had to kind of work through that. And I guess I thought we were kind of past it, and I don't know if maybe she's such a young puppy and they were thinking that maybe they should be, softer on her or whatever. I don't know. But I do know that she isn't, she is temperamentally weak. And I don't mean like she has a weak temperament, like a genetic weak temperament, because I know she doesn't. This is a puppy that was in my house. I raised her. I know what she was like. And I can see it in her that she does calm down. She's, like this dog here, if you stress her out, she'll bite you. She bit Alex whenever we were working with her. She also doesn't handle stress well, and gets very nippy when that happens. And so anyway, and actually the reason why Vanya got a correction earlier was because she started to bully this dog. And because she could see that she's weak. See how she's avoiding. She's avoiding. So that's no different than Cashmere does whenever a pup avoids Cashmere, right? She keeps pursuing. You see how her tail is up? The more that this dog avoids Vanya, the more she wants to go after him. And then, now you just saw Bella actually tried to bite her. So Bella, in response to pressure, she tries to get away. She tries to flee. If she can't flee, she uses her mouth to bite, all right? Once again, she's never had to really deal with anything. She's never had to have a serious correction and have to do what she was told. You know what I mean? It's kind of like where it's like if you were to spank your kid, you know what I mean? And like you would make them, for example, me, I used to get spankings when I was a kid. I wasn't allowed to fight or anything. The more that I fought, the worse the spanking got. You know what I mean? And basically the spanking didn't end until I took the spanking. You know what I mean? I had to literally submit to the spanking, and then it was over. If I kept fighting and throwing a fit and trying to run away, that spanking wasn't going to stop. And that's kind of how dogs are. It's no different than, we'll just say something less physical, like timeout. If you told your kid to go to timeout and they refused to go to timeout and they kept running and screaming and running and screaming and not going to timeout, well, then the timeout is obviously not going to stop, right? It's going to continue until you actually do the timeout. Neither of these dogs is capable of a timeout, okay? They both have a very hard time sitting still. They they get nervous, they freak out, and ultimately, the biggest thing they need to learn is just to be still. You know what I mean? It's just to have to sit still, not move, not freak out, not nothing. Just be vulnerable, sit down, sit still, and chill out, And neither of them is really capable of that right now. And so Vanya started to, Bella, no. Vanya started to kind of put too much pressure on Bella. Bella started to actually kind of freak out. She started to, that fight mode started to kick in because she couldn't fly away or flight, you know, she couldn't run away. And so then Kashmir came in to issue a correction to Vanya because Vanya's a much bigger dog. She's older, and Kashmir's going to give her the correction because, you know, she's basically picking on a weaker dog. And so that's exactly what Kashmir did, is she came in and she issued the correction to Vanya, which of course Vanya did not take very well, as you can see by her muzzle. She got that spot on her muzzle kind of reopened up. It's not a big deal. It's just the scab got torn off. And so Vanya is still trying to escape. Even though everyone is super chill, everyone's calm, there's nothing to actually be afraid of here. She is completely not calm and is having a very hard time. In fact, I saw her earlier where she kind of laid down on the cowhide here for a second, you know what I mean? And it just, you could see her trying to do it, and then she couldn't. She got back up and she started pacing again. So, you know, these two dogs, I think, are suffering from a lack of structure and of order. Neither of them really knows how to be comfortable in their own skin. And that's something that they're going to have to be taught. And that is going to be something that is taught with patience. You know, they're literally going to have to be made to sit for long periods of time, lay down for long periods of time. Every time the dog gets up, no, lay back down, and be put, like, neither of them is actually in any way capable or comfortable in submissive posture. Neither of them have managed to do it, not even once yet. Vanya can't do it for even her mother or Blondie or anyone, and neither can Bella. Bella will bite you, actually. If you try to put her in submissive posture, she'll actually bite you. Her owners, whenever they do it, are probably going to need to get some gloves, some thick gloves, so that they can defend themselves against her bite and just make her lay down in submissive posture and make her stay that way. And they're going to have to be very hard on her as far as, and what I mean is not hard as in physically hard. What I mean is I would suggest with these people, no affection right now. They need to not be affectionate with these dogs. These dogs have clearly had enough affection. What they need is discipline and structure and order. And so it is going to be my recipe that they basically have the dogs in their home, and that they do not give any affection, and that the dogs learn to be calm and quiet in the home. Okay? Calm and quiet. They just need to lay down and be a good dog. Just like Blondie over here, just like all these guys laying down, being calm, being good dogs. These dogs need to just learn to chill out. And that is going to be something that they are going to have to teach these dogs to do. You know, they can do it in my house. I can get them to that point. But once they go back to their homes, that's the big problem, is that they're going to revert back to what they know. And unfortunately, they're not going to get success until they're able to follow through with that. You know, it's very, very essential that they do this, because these dogs are both not going to be headed in a good direction if that does not happen. So you can see here how Vanya is actually trying to lay down. She's calming down slightly. This dog here is not. She's still trying to get out. She's still trying to escape. I will say that this one here, I do believe, probably has a bit of a temperament issue. Her, I think it's more of an environmental issue. I know her lines. Obviously, I bred this dog. I'm very familiar with them. I haven't had not one single person have to have any real issues with their dogs. Nothing temperamentally. We've had some training issues, but nothing temperamentally. No weak temperaments in the lines. So, and I'm not seeing that in her now. You know what I mean? She hasn't tried to bite me. She's just she doesn't know how to control herself at all. And so now you can see she's finally laying down. And I don't know if you noticed, but I'm not giving them any relief. Both of them have wanted out. They've both been under pressure. They both feel uneasy in here. And I have refused to give them any affection. I've refused to release any of that pressure, to allow them to escape. I've done none of that. In fact, whenever Kashmir gave the correction to Vanya, it actually got pretty intense because Blondie came over and Vanya actually tried to escape out of the kennel, at which point Preacher came over and put her back down. He literally grabbed her and put her on the ground. Now, as you can see, she doesn't have any marks on her. She's perfectly fine, but she did her best to try to escape. And the thing is that if I was to save her in that moment, if I was to have grabbed her out and saved her, that would have only reinforced her feeling that she doesn't have to take the correction. What I want her to understand is she has no other option than to learn how to cope in this situation. As hard as it may be to look at or to see or to think about, if she's ever going to be able to be calm and handle a stressful situation, she has to learn that you have to submit to it, okay? And the difference of that would be, or an example of that would be, those of you that watched my videos with Giovanni, whenever we are out downtown, Giovanni is also uncomfortable about being out there with all those people, right? It's a very stressful situation. There's a lot of pressure being put on. He's uneasy about it. However, because he's raised in my home and I don't give in to that, he has learned that even in a stressful situation that he does not like, he basically has to submit to it. He has to just give in and deal with it. And you'll see that he's uncomfortable, but you also won't see him freaking out and trying to get away from it, all right? And whenever he does try to kind of pull away, I bring him right back. I sit him down and I make him deal with it, right? And that's how you teach a dog to handle stress and pressure, is not to give into it. You keep bringing them back to it. You correct any unwanted behavior. You correct, like whenever Giovanni originally would try to kind of freak out a little bit, and maybe he would kind of jerk his head away, and maybe he might start to kind of want to get a little freaked out, a lot like how this girl's getting right now. I would immediately issue a leash correction and bring him back around and make him calm down. So I'm teaching him, deal with the pressure. You don't get to bite. You don't get to get away from it. Deal with the pressure. And you see how Bella's not handling the pressure. So she's trying to get away. When she can't get away, she bites. And that's a learned behavior. She's learned that whenever she's in a situation she doesn't like, she can try to escape it. And if that doesn't work, then she uses her mouth and she bites. And that's worked for her so far. Whenever she did it to Alex and I, like I said, I was out there leash training her, and Alex had already kind of interacted with her, and he had pet her and bonded with her, but in that moment, for whatever reason, she got stressed out, and she actually bit him and broke the skin. And I put her in submissive posture, which she tried to bite me. She tried to flip out. It wasn't the prettiest thing to see. Imagine, there's a couple Cesar Millan videos where he is dealing with dogs like that. I think in particular, like Chihuahua type dogs, really, really bitey dogs, very squirmy, bitey dogs that tend to get pretty hysterical. So that's that behavior. You see how she keeps. Now, if you notice, what's funny is that Vanya is actually acting a lot more like her mother right now. She's continually putting the pressure, not too much pressure, but continually putting some pressure on this dog. Tail up. She's not backing down to the bites. She's not going overboard. And so it just shows there is some stability to her temperament. It's not as bad of a temperament as I think Bella's is. I don't know about Bella's breeding, but I do know that from what I've heard from the owners, I think they didn't pay very much for her. She was more of like, I don't know if it was an impulse buy, but I think it was an emotional buy. They wanted a Corso, and she was a cheap dog and, convenient. And so, they picked her up. And so anyway, so you see there, so you see how she kind of, so that was a correction back. So, right. So she's she's actually being disrespectful to Bella right there, or pardon me, to Vanya right there, and Vanya actually gave her a correction back by kind of coming back at her. But in a measured way, like I said, in a measured way. Honestly, if Vanya stayed with me long enough, she'd be fine. She'd stop this kind of trying to get out of it behavior, and she would just learn to cope. It's a coping mechanism that she's missing right now. She doesn't know how to cope with a stressful situation. So she tries to evade it, and really freaks out because she has no ability, she has no experience just having to deal with it. And honestly, the same thing with this girl, although I don't know necessarily how much better she would get, because like I said, there is from what I've seen, a genuine temperament issue there. And so anyway, so I kind of like having these two out because they actually have a lot in common with each other. As far as their kind of their mistakes they're making. Both of them can be too dominant. Both of them can be too energetic, and both of them have a problem with coping with stressful situations. The difference is just the intensity of it. So anyway, so I'm going to continue to work with these guys. It's unfortunate that I couldn't get that other stuff on video. But like I said, I was really trying to do more one-on-one, time with them and really kind of focus very heavily on the training. And like I said, it's essential that these dogs learn how to cope with pressure. It's difficult to watch, like I said. It's hard because nobody wants to see a dog scared and freaking out, but ultimately the reality is that either Kashmir is going to have to do it or a human's going to have to do it. One way or the other, this dog is going to have to learn, both of these dogs are going to have to learn how to handle stressful situations without freaking out and trying to bite. And no matter what, no matter who does it, it's going to be stressful. And it's better for this lesson to be learned from a dog and from a healthy pack than it is, I will say it's faster for the dog to learn it from other dogs and from a pack than it is from a human. And that's why the owners requested that I do this. Like I said, Bella's owners watched the video of Kashmir correcting Vanya, and they specifically called me and asked me if I would make sure to introduce Bella and Kashmir so that she could actually get that correction. And so that's what I'm doing, and that's what I've done. But like I said, so far, Vanya was the one that ended up getting more of the correction because she was the one that was picking on the little girl here. And I will say, whenever I very first brought out Bella, Kashmir did issue her a correction. She did not, leave a mark on her because she's a younger dog. Kashmir is people think she's crazy, but in reality, she's measured. Her correction to this pup was nowhere near as serious as the one she gave to Vanya because Vanya is much older than she is. And so anyway, but her thing is, she did do it. She did kind of follow her around the house and really keep putting the pressure on and make her calm down. And every time she would get too excited, Kashmir would come over and make her submit. And that's the thing is, the Kashmir monitors the energy level of these dogs. When they get too hectic, when it gets too crazy, she makes it come down. She comes and corrects it. All of them, even Blondie does. You are not allowed to have hectic, crazy energy because it does no good to anyone, and you need to be calm. There's nothing beneficial about being crazy and not knowing how to handle yourself. It's kind of like a child that's never been taught how to control their emotions, and they just get angry and they throw these temper tantrums and they run and they slam their door and they've just never had to just sit and deal with it, And so I'm making her sit and deal with it. I'm not giving her a reprieve. I'm not letting her out of here. I'm not making Kashmir leave her alone. I'm not making anyone do it. You know what I mean? And she's just going to have to learn to get over it. The same way that Velocity had to learn to be calm. If she didn't want Kashmir on her constantly, she had to learn to be calm. And those of you that know, You've seen Cashmere. Cashmere will come over and she'll dominate Velocity. And what does Velocity do? She immediately drops into submissive posture and lays quietly and still and respectful. And then Cashmere leaves her alone. So it's just one of those things that you know, just in dog society, that's what happens. Psst, no. And every opportunity that she starts to get a little haywire, like when she was just, you know, trying to dig at the fence right there, I immediately gave her a correction, you know, teaching her, no, you don't get to be crazy, right? Like the digging stuff is a symptom of an unstable mind. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to give her correction from that. Not all digging everywhere all the time is, but in this particular situation it is, right? And so we're teaching her, be calm. Don't sit here and try to take your anxiety out on the floor. Be calm, be still, and deal with it. You know, deal with it. That's what you have to do. You just have to sit and deal with it. And I don't know if you can tell, but she's doing a lot better than Belladonna is, or pardon me, Bella is. And that is an example of the temperament that I told you about. I think that her temperament is not as good as Vanya's is. Vanya has a better temperament. She's going to do better faster. Whereas this girl here, she just can't sit still. She literally can't sit still. So, anyway, so I wanted to give you guys a little update on that. Wanted to do a video for Bella's owners. They really were wanting to see her with the pack. Like I said, I tried to get video of her and Cashmere, but it just didn't work. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that. But it is what it is. And, you know, and so she is out with her and Cashmere is, you know, leaving her alone. So anyway, I'm going to let y'all go. This video is pretty dang long, and clean up her muzzle a little bit, put some more wound powder in it, and then I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.